all content that you put on your website or on other platforms is, basically qualifications for your brand. And so if the content you're putting up isn't helping to improve those qualifications, then it's helping to diminish those qualifications. And so it can't just be content. It has to be content that's directly connected to your product, directly connected to your message, directly connected to your customer avatar or your target market. We call it customer avatar, of course.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the High Level Spotlight Sessions, where we showcase awesome marketers doing awesome marketing. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Mark de Grasse. He's the president of digitalmarketer.com, the leader in education for marketing professionals. Mark, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, well, we're excited to have you. We're big fans of Digital Marketer. We've been involved in a few of the events. I'm quite certain we share a lot of customers. So I think our talk today is really going to resonate.
Awesome. Yeah, no, we love you guys. Everybody talks you up. I think, I had an agency before becoming the president of Digital Marketer, and I wish you were around then because that would have made my life so much easier.
When did you take over as president for DM?
It was actually July 2021. Yeah. So it feels like longer ago.
It does feel like I feel like we were at TNC kind of just hearing the news. But so yeah, that's been almost 2 years then, coming up on 2 years.
Yep. Great. 2 years in July. So I'm kind of like, I have to think back because I'm like, it feels like 10, but no, it's only been a couple.
Well, tell me a little bit about the origin story. What was the agency life like before you joined the team at DM?
What's funny is the whole reason I started the agency was because I had started an education platform for marketing. And my whole goal was to teach small business owners how to do marketing themselves so that we'd have better content online so that they would be able to actually, communicate with their customers directly. Turns out that nobody wants to do that. I think I was selling basically a set package where I would set up the brand, I'd set up the website, set up the funnel, and then I'd create a list of like 30 to 50 custom videos showing them how to manipulate all the elements that I set up. And only about 5% of the time was it adopted. And so I only did that for 6 years and then I stopped. So I did it for 6 years. And what happened with the community was that everybody just kept asking, like, can you do it? And so I made the agency, but I really wanted to teach marketing. And what I eventually realized was that I needed to teach marketers marketing because they're the only people who actually want to learn that stuff. Everybody else just wants to hire marketers to do it. So when Digital Marketer came along, I actually worked with Scalable, the bigger company, to work on their content strategy for multiple brands. And then they decided to kind of focus on Digital Marketer again. And that's how it all kind of happened. And now we've made a ton of changes and we have even more planned for this year. So it's exciting.
That's awesome. Well, let's dig into it. I'm excited to talk about content marketing with you. I think you kind of already illustrated some of the traditional sort of pain points around it, right? Like we can't leave businesses to do it for themselves because they just won't, right? They don't have time. They don't know what to do, et cetera. But as an agency, trying to do it for them can also lead to a lot of pain, right? In a lot of ways, I think we've all made the mistake of, and maybe some of you watching are still making it, of being reactive to what the clients are telling you they want you to produce for them, right? And you're just saying yes because you can do that, but really you should probably take a step back and think about whether it's a good idea or in their best interest to be doing that. So let's start there. How do you approach content marketing when we're agencies working with clients who think they know what content should be being created, but likely don't?
Oh yeah. Well, the fallacy with content is that you just need content, right? It's like, well, something's better than nothing. And it's something that I used to tell my clients too. I'm like, well, we'll just get something up because at least, your competitors aren't really posting anything. So at least we have something on there. You're doing better than them. But as the years went on, I realized that doesn't really matter either, because if you don't connect the content to the thing you're trying to do, which for most businesses is make money, then what the heck are you accomplishing? What you end up accomplishing is maybe some awareness, maybe you feel a little bit better because there's some items in your blog, but at the end of the day, all you're doing is just posting junk. It has no connection to your products, no connection to, say, your brand principles and your branding in general, and it's just stuff. And it's usually created by the person in charge of the stuff, which ends up being like your social media manager, which means it's even more disconnected from the marketing team and from the sales team and from the owners of the company, because who gives a crap what, Sally puts on TikTok? We don't even look at TikTok. And it's like,
Yeah.
but all content that you put on your website or on other platforms is, basically qualifications for your brand. And so if the content you're putting up isn't helping to improve those qualifications, then it's helping to diminish those qualifications. And so it can't just be content. It has to be content that's directly connected to your product, directly connected to your message, directly connected to your customer avatar or your target market. We call it customer avatar, of course. And if you're not doing all of those things, then you could be wasting your time, which is, for me personally, that's a nightmare. Is thinking,
I think we've all
I
been there.
wasted time.
We've all wasted that time, and we've all, I think most businesses that have been in business for a while have been through those cycles, right? Well, we paid for 6 months or whatever, and we've got all these blog posts up, but what have they gotten us, right? We had all these social posts, but did they do anything, right? And so I feel like we're kind of now we have this opportunity to sort of go back and do it better based on what we've learned over the past 5 years or so. And so how do you teach folks where to start, right? How do you put together a program that is going to be meaningful for your clients?
Well, for us, we have the content certification, which I personally wrote, and I call it the Content Development and Appraisal Framework, whereas basically it starts with research, and not just research because everybody, I'm going to figure out my target market and demographics. That's part of it, which is what I mentioned, the customer avatar. But the main part of it is self-assessment, and then doing competitive research that shows you the points, and then combining all of that information with whatever the promotional strategy is currently in order to make all the content useful. And useful content has a direct relationship to leads or sales. So if you have a bunch of content and there's no direct connection to leads or sales, then it's awareness, and you could do awareness on accident. It doesn't have to be like a focused effort. What has to be a focused effort is saying, okay, I just spent 3 hours writing an article. I spent another 3 hours optimizing, creating graphics, creating related videos, creating podcasts, creating all this content. And then if it's not connected to anything, then maybe you just wasted 8 hours on something that's like, I don't know. I think somebody mentioned that they heard about it and then they went and bought. So, if you really want to get into content and you have to be scientific about it. And we've been this way with paid media and even social media for quite a while. You analyze your impressions, you analyze your statistics, you analyze where everybody clicks and where they go. But for some reason, content is just like, well, just put some crap up. Like, whatever, have somebody write it. I'll just outsource that. And it doesn't, it doesn't do anything. And then we're surprised that everybody's always shocked and appalled by the content marketer asking for $5,000 a month because they just spent 100 hours on some stuff when you shouldn't be, because you didn't connect it to anything. And this goes for all elements of marketing, because what happens in marketing, especially with small business owners, is they're like, okay, a friend of mine says I need to do email. So could you just do email for me? And then, another friend says I have to be on Pinterest. Could you do Pinterest for me? And so there's this disconnection between all these marketing methods and actually what you're trying to do, which is a core marketing strategy. And so one, a lot of businesses don't have a marketing strategy. They have a bunch of stuff that they're doing, and hopefully it leads to sales. And it's the same thing for content. So if you don't have a content strategy that's directly connected to your greater objectives, then you really don't have a strategy. You have stuff, which is better than not stuff, but it's not
sometimes. But like you pointed out, it could actually be hurting, right? If it's really not great stuff. I'd love to get your point of view. I'm assuming I know what you're going to say, but we talk a lot about niching, right? And to me, when I'm hearing what you're talking about, I'm getting excited, because it's like, if I do that and figure it out for one of my customers, if the rest of my customers are in the same industry, I should be able to build a scalable sort of product that I could take across all of them.
Exactly. And that's really what you're looking to do. You're looking to support your product. So a lot of times, somebody comes and they'll say like, well, I want to start doing some content. What should I write about? It's like, okay, well, what do you sell the most of? And they'll say, oh, well, we get 90% of our sales off this one product. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you advertise, or what do you do content for? Well, we do it for everything. And they have this giant process for making content for all these products that probably don't sell very well. And so, if you just get into just that mindset, like, okay, we're doing this to make money. We're not doing this to make content. The content is part of it, but I think it's almost like we're ashamed of that. Like, oh, well, I don't want people to know I'm in business for money. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, but people know that about you. So lean into it. Everybody buy. Like I was working with one local business, and she's like, wow, we're doing all these things, and we have this over here, and we're going to start doing this type of event. We're going to start doing these things. I'm like, okay, stop all of that and just tell me what sells. Oh, well, we sell this one little bag. This is our top seller. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to work on selling more of that little bag, and then we're going to connect it to bigger bags and then other products. And that's your ascension ladder, but it all starts there. And so it all goes back to the customer value journey, which is our kind of primary IP. 8-stage framework gets somebody from not knowing your brand at all to, finding your brand, buying from you, buying more from you, and then becoming essentially an active marketing channel for you by promoting your products themselves while also buying the products. So, and the fact of the matter is most companies don't have that. They don't have a complete process. They have a nebulous cloud of activities that they're constantly doing, that most of which are probably unnecessary or superfluous or, a waste of time. And They just do it because they're worried that since they haven't set their structure, they're worried if I take out this component, the whole thing might just fall apart because I don't even know what that component does. And it's like, okay, well, let's put it into this framework, this one 8-stage framework. And if you're missing these components, then we'll just fix those components. And now you have a set path that you could measure, you can optimize, you could change, you could do all these things. But if you don't have the structure itself, you're living in a house of cards that could collapse. And that's why you're so afraid to make changes.
That's awesome. I love the idea of frameworks. I think, as marketers, we all come up with our own, and what's important to me is that you just have one, right? Because I think that brings clarity, and clarity drive results. And so when I'm hearing you say that, my gears are spinning towards the sort of businesses that I worked with in the past, right? Like med spas, they all do some sort of body sculpting, right? So it's like, hey, you'd probably like to sell more of that, right? Okay, great. Well, let's build a content strategy specifically for this, and we're going to run it for the next quarter or 2 quarters or whatever. But like everything will revolve around us selling more of that for you, and it'll be very clear if it worked or not, right? And it's easy for clients to buy into that because they're like, now I understand what should be happening in social media and on the blog, and it should all be driving back to more cool sculpting sales or whatever it may be, right? And whether that's, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of folks work in home services, right? I think seasons are great opportunities to build frameworks around, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, we plan for winter now because it's summer, and we roll out the strategy through those months, and it drives these types of sales, and then it switches in, summer for these types of services. So talk to me a little bit. Am I on the right? Is that how kind of you would apply the framework of saying, hey, let's look at what you want to sell more of, and let's put some time frame parameters around that, and you're going to understand the activities that are happening within that time and the result they're supposed to produce?
Exactly. And so the CVJ that I talk about is really about one product or one product line. And so that's another mistake that people make, is they think like, oh, I'll just have one grand strategy for the entire business. And it's like, no, business is more complex than that. Your customers are more complex than that. We have the customer avatar, and I keep on saying that, but the difference between our customer avatar and most businesses is that it's a much more in-depth and personal look at your customer, your target customer, than just some demographics, 30 to 45-year-old men who wear glasses and shoot video. And so we're going to market to you this thing. It's like, no, you're a person. Let's call you something. And so we actually name our avatars. So it's like, William, the wall painter, and then you break it down. So
Okay.
what it is, and the best part of it, we call it the customer avatar canvas, which is just a simple PDF document, is the before and after grid. So it's not just your demographics. Demographics are in there, but then you also have motivations, you have fears and frustrations, you have goals and objectives, and you have this person, and then you do a before and after grid, basically stating, okay, here's the person's before, here's what they look like before. And so it's say you're selling a pair of shoes, and you're like, okay, before, this person's shoes were ugly, they were run down, their feet hurt at the end of the day, nobody complimented them ever about their shoes, they never matched their clothes, and then they found the Super Shoe 5000, and after they put those shoes on, man, Bob got so many compliments, and everybody was just asking him if he'd grown in height because he looked a little taller. And his wife was just saying, hey, did you lose weight? And now Bob's a happy guy. And now just visually you're picturing Bob, and you're like, man, Bob, she seems like a happy guy. And so what happens, and how you're supposed to do your content and all your marketing in general, is you're talking to Bob. You're not talking to 30 to 45-year-old guy. You're talking to Bob. Bob's a real person. Bob has a couple kids. Bob has a really demanding job then where he's on his feet all the time. You want some good shoes for Bob. And so then you can start to see like, oh, how would I market to Bob? What creatives would you use? What words would you use? And then that one picture, Bob, becomes who you're selling to. And that's so much easier to build content for than random guy. Because then what happens is you'll start generalizing your content, and generalized content is crap. Generalized content is WikiHow, and the crummy websites you end up on, and we're like, I know I need to twist the cap counterclockwise. That wasn't my freaking question. Like, give me some useful information. And so, once you get that picture in your head, then you can start to build the customer avatar. Because how are you supposed to walk somebody down a path if you don't know who that person is? Because you'll generate content at every single stage that doesn't connect with anybody. So number one, figure out who you're connecting to. Number two, assess your company and really look at what the introduction products are. Because if you say like, okay, well, we sell 50,000 SKUs, and then you're like, okay, well, what's your top 10? Oh, well, it's all this, and they're all within this one category. That's the intro. And that's what we call conversion. So stage 4 is conversion, and it's not about making money. It's about making your customer avatar make a commitment. And so the commitment could be $1. It just has to be some financial commitment to your brand. And now you get them excited about that purchase. And now you ascend them to making money. But I think for most funnels that you see, content otherwise, people are usually just thinking about getting money, right? They're like, well, I got to make my revenue number this month. Don't give a crap who buys, just got to make somebody buy. And it's like, no. And especially now, we haven't even talked about AI yet, but with content generation powered by AI, now you have the ability to super customize content and make tons of it, make as much as you want. So now it's even more important to get the path down and really connect with people in a way that they want to be connected to. And
so let's talk about types of content in a second, but I do want to hammer a point home here, which is you mentioned ascension, and that's I feel like something that comes with experience, right? Like we worked with med spas for years, and it took us a while to realize they all wanted to run Botox ads because you can get really cheap leads for Botox. But what they really wanted to sell was cool sculpting. So it was like, okay, we need to have a plan here. We'll get the cheap conversions, but that's not going to make you money. You're not going to be happy with us in 3 months if all we did was generate a bunch of these cheap Botox deals. We need a plan to convert them ascend them into your higher ticketed thing. And so the fact that you guys have like a framework for that, I think is really important, because a young marketer could just see like, oh, cheap leads, I could go get clients for this all day long. And it ends up hurting you and the client in the long run. Talk to me about
the business too.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. So talk to me about types of content, right? I think, okay, get clarity around the avatar. Let's get clarity around, the goal here. But what does it translate into as far as types of content? Are we talking about blog posts, social media pieces, exposés in LinkedIn? Is it always different? Like, how do you guys approach all the different mediums of content?
So a couple methods. So right now with the content store, we do only talk about 3 pillar pieces of content. So pillar content is long form content, because at the end of the day, like if you need short form content, just go to your long form content, because if you don't do that, then you have this, an orphaned piece of content that has no connection to anything other than itself. That's not super useful. Now, if you focus on just pillar content, which we have 3 types of pillars, we have articles, we have long form video, and we have podcasts. And so those 3 pillars, if you just worry about making those, you'll have all the infographics and all the sound bites and all the short form videos and vertical videos. All of that stuff will be taken care of by your long form content. Plus, you'll have somewhere to send people who see the short form content where they're like, oh,
Right.
I love that. Then, hey, guess what? There's a whole article about this. Come check out the article. Same thing with video, where it's like, hey, man, that was a great tip. This is just one of 5 tips. See the rest. Check out the long form video. So number 1, start with long form. Number 2, how do you choose which long form, which is always a question I get. Well, everybody's on video. 70% of content consumed online is video, and I gotta be video. I'm like, okay, well, do you like making video? No, I hate video. I'm terrified of the camera. And they just list all these things that they hate about video. It's like, don't make video content then. You could figure video content out, or you can outsource it if you have to, but what do you like to do? And so somebody, well, I love writing. That's awesome. You need to write articles. You need to think of, and I'll talk about ideation of concepts, but you need to write articles. So forget about videos for now. Don't worry about videos. Don't worry about podcasts. Or, hey, I hate writing and I hate video. Podcasts. Do you like talking to people? Yeah, I can have conversations all day. Okay, podcast, 1 hour podcast. How many 30-second videos is that? How many sound bites is that? How many quotes can you pull out of that? I mean, really, 1 hour long podcast, or let's say 30-minute podcast, you could generate 50 pieces of content. And those content now are anchored to the podcast, and they're anchored to that specific episode. So now, when you start thinking in terms of pillars, all the other stuff, all the types of content, all the other things will flow naturally from that one piece based on your resources and based on what you like to do. Because if you don't like to do something, you're not going to do it, or you're going to do bad, or you're going to do it for a little bit and quit, or you're going to outsource it and it's not really going to be your content, and all these other things are going to happen. So number 1, do content that you like. Number 2, choose a pillar type that you like, and then worry about splintering that pillar into whatever platforms you want. But all of it's going to lead back to the website ideally. So you've got your bases covered.
I was hoping that you were going to talk about pillar content, because I think it sums up everything we've talked about so far, right? If you create one piece of pillar content, it, like you said, it dictates your social content for weeks or months, because like you said, you just take all the little pieces of the pillar piece, you turn that into micro content and you schedule it out, but it keeps everything focused, right? And I think that's kind of the name of the game that we've been talking about is, hey, client, no, I'm not just going to entertain all these ideas that you're getting from your cousin and your sister and your customers and this and that. Like, we're focused on this pillar content, which dictates all of the day-to-day sort of social content. And then I can see that becoming like a featured space on my homepage, right? If I offer 10 major services at my med spa or whatever, I've got a plan for 3 years, right? We'll work with you to create pillar content for each of those services and then integrate it into the site so that people can go to those pages and learn and educate and convert themselves based on the content that's going to, pillar content is evergreen, right? It's going to live there for years.
Well, especially because it's your product.
Yeah.
Everybody's worried about like viral content and how do I pick the right topic? It's like, don't worry about that, because the viral content people, one, you don't know what's going to go viral. Like I've done this for 20 years and I've never generated a piece of content that I thought was going to kill. You spend all this time, you're like, oh, I came up with this concept. I dreamt about this concept. And then I spent a week writing this article and I spent all this time and effort. And then you're like, it just flops. And then the piece of crap that you thought up in like 15 minutes because the newsletter deadline was right now. And you're just like, and then that's your best piece of content. So there's no way you're going to figure out what good content is. So
Yeah.
get that out of your head. And then if you just anchor it to, again, a product or service, ideally your conversion product or your service, then everything is going to lead back and it's easy to track. And you'll know like, oh yeah, we did that, 10 video TikTok series and all we talked about was cold sculpting. Or you go with the conversion piece, which is cheap Botox. And you just came up with 10 pieces of Botox content. And then you get people in the door because you have a free Botox consult. And then you inform them that they don't actually want Botox, they want cold sculpting. And then there you go. Now you're making money. There's a path and everybody's happy. And you have a ton of good Botox content. And actually in that regards, I developed a website. It's called Art of Anti-Aging, ATX.com. And Karina, the owner, was just crazy about content. Like we had like 70 pieces of Botox content, pillar content, and it's just about the one subject. And so the biggest barrier to that process is usually people say like, oh, well, everybody does what's the dangers of Botox or what are the benefits of Botox? And it just doesn't matter that everybody's done it because you haven't done it. So if your customer's looking for that piece of information and you don't have it, guess who's going to give it to them? Somebody else, your competitors, a cheaper solution, a worse solution. They're the ones that are going to get the traffic that you should be getting because you are embarrassed that there's 5,000 articles about the benefits of Botox, but they're not your articles. So who cares? Just make this stuff. And it doesn't have to be viral. You don't even know what the heck's viral anyway.
No, 100%. And for local businesses, if I'm finding content from businesses in other states, well, that doesn't really help me out, right? Like I need it from you. You tell me, you talk to me, you inform me about these things, and then I'll come and pay you.
Exactly.
So, Mark, do you guys help people? I think if I'm watching, I'm following along, I'm like, this all makes total sense. It's way more clear. There's way more clarity as far as delivering a content program. How do you price it though? How do you price all these different things that go into pillar content, micro content, all that kind of stuff?
It just depends because depending on the resources, the media type, what the actual company can do, it makes a big difference. Like I actually just got a quote for somebody on TikTok and they said, okay, we will fly out to you. We'll ideate the TikTok series. We'll shoot the TikTok series. Then we'll edit everything. And that was like $7,500 a month. And so I think when you start talking about money, people are like, oh yeah, it's probably $1,000 or $500. It's like, no. If you want decent content, then you're talking, I don't know, 3 to 7 to 10, depending on what it is. And then, but for the most part, people don't need to start there. You're nowhere close to needing to do that because you've never done any content before. All you need to worry about is low-hanging fruit and testing concepts until you figure out one that you like to do, that you do well, and that you do consistently. And then you could go forward from there. So, but it's much more expensive than people think because it's a lot of work. AI is actually helping to make this process much faster, easier, cheaper. But at the end of the day, the AI content's only as good as the person asking the questions or feeding the content itself. So you really do need to make the content yourself, ideally. And it's hard. And it's going to take some time. It's going to take some money. But at the end of the day, it's the only thing that's worthwhile. And why throw your money in the trash, which is what you've been doing to date, instead of just pay somebody who knows what the heck they're doing to give you a strategy that works. And then you could worry about making it cheaper once you understand what's going on. So I'd say, it's probably for good content, like quality, original content, not AI, whatever. But somebody, because even AI, people are like, oh, now I can just get articles written. It's like, yeah, I'm sorry, but it's only as good as how many people are good at creating article titles? One. And you could say like, oh, I'll put it in a chat GPT. It'll give me 5,000 article titles. It's like, who cares? That's the other side. I haven't even talked about that, where, your ideation of your topics actually needs to come from one, again, what's going to sell, but two, what's the structure of your content? Because a lot of people start with keywords, right? Like, okay, well, where are people looking up? Don't do that. You need to worry about your content structure before you actually get into anything else. And even when you do start making content, you need to think in terms of content series, not a single piece of content. So number one is that everybody screws up the process by starting with topics rather than structure. And then they end up just making a bunch of crap. because you could come up with 50 million topics and it could do nothing for your business because none of the topics are connected. And so even if you do get a bunch of people to click on one, it doesn't matter because there's nowhere else to go. So if you start from a top down structure, then you start thinking, okay, what's my primary category? What's my subcategories? And what are the content series that are going to be directly related to each other? So if you look at the Digital Marketer YouTube page, you'll actually see that we come out with usually 5 to 6 videos at a time, and it's all the same subject matter expert, and it's all the same subject. And so we're coming out with our social media search soon. So you'll see a Pinterest series, and you'll see a LinkedIn series, and you'll see a Facebook series. And the reason why series work is because you want subscribers and you want followers, and it's tough to get either one of those if people don't know why they're doing it other than they liked a single video. And so a single video is not going to win you 1 million subscribers. Now, a series where you found, okay, everybody loves this topic. Here's a little piece. And then they're like, oh, you like that? Well, I got another video. Stay tuned. And then they watch another. And then they're like, hey, guess what? There's more. Stay tuned. And then people know what to expect. And so it's the McDonald's effect where you know what you're going to get, even though it's crap. It's going to be the same crap everywhere. But you don't have to do crap. You could do good content, but the same effect happens where it's like, okay, now I'm interested. And guess what? You don't have to keep doing the content series if it sucks. If it's not going well, you get to stop and go on to the next content series. But you'll start to see a pattern. Content production goes easier. And now you have some actual data that'll show whether the topic you're talking about is actually worth talking about. And it's all related. So you get more clicks and, more time on the website too.
Interesting. So can you flesh this out with a real example? So you said, don't focus on keywords, right? Let's say I work with, I don't know, roofers, right? And keywords would be like, need a new roof, I guess, or something. Like
new
that,
roof,
right?
Austin. New roof,
right, exactly.
Damaged roof,
So how do I flip that into the topic structure?
So if you think about roofing, so roofing is pretty specific. It's totally competitive and it's very location specific. I would start talking about the neighborhood and the individual issues that that area has, because we all have different issues. I'm from California, so we literally had rocks on top of our roof in a 1950s house and didn't have any problems because the weather's perfect. Now I'm in Austin and I have a steel roof and I have a whole other set of issues because there's rain and there's ice and there's snow sometimes and it's a million degrees sometimes. And so now it's a bunch of different issues. So in terms of content, you could actually expand into a bunch of different areas of individual issues that a user will face. And so that's actually the content structure I would start talking about. Okay, replacement roof. Should you have a metal roof or should you have shingles? What happens with solar panels? I want to get solar panels. What type of roof with solar panels? And so all you have to really do is look at the individual, again, the customer avatar. What are they facing? And start making the top content about that. So it could be roof maintenance. It could be one, kind of a primary category. Could be roof types. Who knows what type of roof you want. Could be, just weather, best roofs for types of weather. And so you just start breaking it down. And then within those topics, then you do your keyword research and it gets a lot easier. But at the end of the day, you're building a database of information that's useful and findable. And now you're the expert because you have, 100 pieces of content about roofing, whereas Joe's Shack down the street that does roofing has zero content, zero stuff on his website, zero presence on social media. Who are you going to trust more? The guy who came out with 500 pieces of content about roofing, or Joe, And
well, as you were doing that, you were hitting so many keywords as you went, right? Like replacement roof, you talked about it, is damage going on, and solar, as I think that was just a great example of, if you do it that way, you're going to naturally hit all these keywords and they're topically clustered, which Google wants to see anyway. So well done. Thanks for allowing me to put you on the spot like that.
Oh, I love doing this stuff. Well, some people are like, I just don't know what content to make. I'll be like, okay, well, just give me your homepage. I'm like, okay, this. Have you covered any of those topics? They're like, no, I've never even thought of those. I'm like, yeah, you talk about them. Like you should answer every question that has to do with it. And, I've always did this convincing, or I used to have to convince people to make content. Imagine that. But back when I started, it was like, no, everybody needs content. I'm like, well, why? And it's, it goes back to that. If you're not answering the question, then they're finding the answer somewhere else. And it's just not a situation you want. And from a customer service standpoint, it has an operational value, because now instead of having to pick up the phone, ask the same stupid, how do I fix my toilet question, or YouTube video where I show you how to fix your toilet in Austin. And it's like, whoa, do we have special toilets here? And like, no, but that's keyword.
It's a no-brainer when you take a step back and you look at really big, great brands, right? This is what they do. They know that I need to feed you enough. I need to have as much content as you want to consume. And we all want to consume a ton of content, right? Like I've been on the fence about getting an Apple Watch, that new Ultra one, right? For like 2 weeks. And every day I would just go to the site and consume some sort of content. Like one day I'm reading about how you can climb like mountaineer with it. I'll never go mountaineering, but like I like to dream that maybe one day I will, right? And it's got everything I need for that. And then the next day it's this, and the next day it's that. But in your example with the roofer, if I'm consuming content about solaring your roof in Austin and this and that, and then the next day I'm, repairs, here's what frequently goes wrong with roofs in Austin. I'm being branded. I'm understanding that this is an authority, and I'm just subtly convincing myself that this is the right investment. This is the company I'm going to go with. They've got, all the angles covered. And so I think when you kind of step back and look at like the big brands with unlimited budgets, like this is what they do every day, right? We love to consume endless amounts of content before we buy.
Oh yeah. Well, and the problem is with small businesses, since we don't have a 50-person content team, is you think that there must be some magic bullet, and some of these brands have figured out the magic bullet and they're doing it. So I need to figure out the magic bullet. It has nothing to do with me just doing work every day. It has to do with me figuring out the trick. And it's like, I'm sorry, there's no trick. Even if there was a trick and you came out with a YouTube video that got 1 million hits, it doesn't matter, because there's nowhere else for the people who find you to go. And so that's where the volume of content comes in. And you just think like, no, I just need one good piece of content. It's like, no, it's not how anything works. It's not how you personally work. If you think about your personal habits of consuming information, it doesn't go, hey, I saw the latest viral video, I'm going to subscribe to that person. No, you're going to click on their channel, realize that this was a fluke, and then you're going to leave and find somebody better. Now, TikTok does have that down where if you find a piece of content on TikTok and you look at the profile, you'll be like, holy crap, this is good. But that's part of the model, is that they only promote those videos that are from consistent content creators that they now like, and now they'll send you traffic. And so that's the difference, because we want that magic bullet. And today, especially with SEO, if you optimize the right article the right way and just hit it perfect, then yeah, you might have an article that does like 99% of your traffic on accident. But that's going to start happening less and less because of how, search engines and AI in general are starting to adapt to content online. So forget all that, forget the tricks, just get good content that connects and is useful to your audience, and then do a lot of it forever, because that's what we do now.
If we juxtapose that with the alternate way, the old way, which was writing for keywords, and now I'm looking at a piece of content, it's like, looking for a roof in Austin? Well, let me tell you about Austin roofs. Roofs in Austin typically, and you're just stuff. Like, that's doing nothing for anyone. And I think it's just night and day when you kind of take a step back. You mentioned the elephant in the room. I have to ask you about it before we finish. AI, it's everywhere you look, in all the news. Talk to me. I think you've expressed some of your views. It doesn't sound like you are worried about AI, stealing any marketers' jobs in the near term. But
I love it. The fact of the matter is that AI makes good marketers and just effective people 10 times more effective. Like the amount of research that I could personally do in like 30 minutes is probably 10 times what I could have done before. The ideation, the little, crap content sound bites that you just need for everything. Like, I have an event page. I need 150 words. Let me think about this. It's like, no, just put that in the machine spits it out in 5 seconds. Nobody cares. Like, for those types of little pieces, it's fantastic. Now, the people who should be worried are the people that, one, have no skills, have no experience, have no idea what strategy is, have no idea what they're doing. And then, oh no, yeah, Billy's going to have to not be useful anymore because he was, spending 8 hours doing a little content piece that I can now do in 50 seconds. So the data entry stuff is going to go away, and eventually it'll start gobbling up these other things that we want automated anyways, because at the end of the day, it wouldn't be that hard for somebody to come up with a concept where I create the pillar content, I feed it into a thing, it spits out 10 Canva quote graphics, it spits out 10 scripts to do vertical YouTube video or vertical TikTok videos, it spits out podcast concepts and potential guests for this specific subject. Like, that's pretty close. So even the content splintering is going to become automated and better, and so at the end of the day, it's going to make good marketers so much more effective. And then what I actually realized, because I was thinking, I'm like, man, why do some campaigns just feel good? All the content lines up, feels awesome, looks the same, it's branded well. It's usually because it's created by a single person. It's not created by a team of 50 people who, they went back and forth and put this all together, because organizationally that's impossible to do. You have one person, they're in charge of the piece of content. But the problem is that you start breaking out platforms, and now the content starts feeling different. It doesn't feel the same. And now you've disconnected from your customer. So what's going to happen, I think, is that you're going to have like the dawn of the ultimate marketer, where a person who could ideate everything, come up with the campaigns, actually build everything themselves or with minimal, assistance. And then you're going to have these things that just feel like billion-dollar brands coming out with campaigns that just look great, sound great, and have the consistency that people expect from bigger brands. So I think that's going to start to become normalized. And then we're going to have to refocus on the customer, where now, customers are going to expect good content from you. And if you don't have good content, they're not going to buy your product. And that's going to be the bigger issue that brands are going to face, where you can't have crap content because nobody will look at your stuff, and you can't have crap product either, and you can't have crap customer service. So all these things that we've pretended matter, that we've actually spent a lot of time commoditizing for the last 10 to 20 years, is now going to come back to the forefront of, no, customer service matters.
But Mark, what I'm getting from you is that AI, and I 100% agree with this, it's almost going to be like a skill set, like being able to touch type, right? You're more valuable. Like 5-10 years ago, it's like, all right, you can touch type, like, awesome, you're hired, right? You're going to be able to produce at a faster rate than someone who can't. Oh, Photoshop, like, oh, that's a skill set that's valuable. I think moving forward, knowing how to manipulate AI will just be a valuable skill set for a human to have and become a more valuable employee or team member.
Exactly. I always compare it to engineering and CAD software, where it's like, before you used to have entire warehouses full of skilled people drawing and sketching aircraft. Like, the concept of it is insane to me. Like, how did that work? And then you had somebody who could do everything, could take a idea in their head and turn it into a 3D aspect that functions. I mean, just imagine how that changed that industry. This is the exact same for marketers. And actually, and that's why I say it's the dawn of the true marketing professional, because people are going to start looking at marketers. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, what you do is literally magic to everyone who doesn't understand it. And to date, we haven't had that capability, because you had somebody who made the strategy, and then they had to work with teams of people to execute that strategy. And it got all convoluted and messy in the process, and was just not as cool as it could have been. Now get rid of all of that and just say, no, we hired this person, and they're going to create something amazing, and they're going to do it 95% themselves, and they're going to know every aspect of what's happening. And now we get into some real cool marketing, and it's going to be fantastic, and I will say this too, because everybody thinks that everybody's on this AI is going to, be a thing. They're not, because I've been interviewing for a new assistant, and I asked, I'm like, how many of you use AI? Because I do these group interviews. None of them out of 10 10
It's
young
so
people
new.
in their 20s.
Yeah. I mean, it's so new and it's hitting, but it is hitting so fast. It's impressive. How long do you think it'll be until you're baking it into courses?
We actually have an AI boot camp launching tomorrow.
Really?
So yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because, digital marketer is more of a traditional, or, very into copywriting, very into paid media. And they actually brought me in for the content component. But those two traditional aspects, I kind of thought, I was like, well, I don't know, does it fit with the brand? And that was like, we're doing a boot camp. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's awesome. I thought I was gonna have to
Yeah, that
sell
is awesome.
somebody on this, but it's the future. It's like, and it's everything we're talking about. So we just did our M3 mastermind last week, and it was 2 days of just talking about AI solutions with 7-8 figure marketing agencies. And it was like, this is what we're doing now. And if you look at somebody like Julia McCoy, and she did coin the phrase AIO, which is artificial intelligence optimizer or optimization, which is basically saying, hey, we're not going to be necessarily generating everything ourselves, but we're going to be guiding the process, and we're going to be using these tools to make everything better, more consistent, faster than they've ever been. And yeah, I mean, that's the future, and it's happening really quick. If you've noticed the layoffs at like Dell and Google and everywhere else.
Yeah. Oh, I'm seeing, I mean, it's crazy. I'm using it more and more myself, but I can see, like you said, a marketer being able to take things further themselves, but I don't think it'll be all the way. I think it'll be like, hey, and here we're going to have a nurture series of X amount of emails. Here's 10 like AI taught like subjects I generated. I'm going to leave it to the copy team. You guys flesh that out. But like, I think this is close, right? Or like generating an image. It might not be awesome, but it might be enough for me to go to the graphic designer and say, this is what it's, fix this, but like, this is where it's heading. Right. And I could see that being a lot of the day-to-day of a marketer being able to express more of what they're thinking, even though I don't have the graphic design skills to actually go and do it.
Well, and the thing is, like, now I use Midjourney all the time, and I am a graphic designer, so I've done this forever. I'm also a writer. And so in terms of prompting information plus understanding layering aspects and photo aspects and even photography and videography cues, it's different. Not everybody could do that, but way less people will be able to do it. So you might have one, say master marketer who's the one that's guiding the whole process, and then a few people who execute the specific aspects of it, but it's going to be way less people than it was before. And that marketer is now going to be able to answer questions in a boardroom about every aspect of marketing, instead of, oh, I'm going to have to run that by our paid media team, or, oh, I'm going to have to run that by our creative team, or, oh, I'm going to, all these different aspects. It's going to be, no, you are the person. And if you can't explain exactly how this marketing is leading to us having more money, then you're what the heck are you doing? You need to figure that out. And so I think it's, the good news is that a lot of people don't want the jobs that are going to be replaced anyways. Like, nobody's ever been like, I just love data entry, data. I have to look up these stats on 50 different places, and then I put them all in an Excel sheet. It's like, nobody wants to do that. It's boring. Totally. It's not creative. It's drudge work. And so the only jobs I think we're going to lose are the drudge work jobs. And if you're not a true marketer and you don't care about the marketing aspect anyways, you don't want to be here anyways. So good news, you could go find somewhere else to maybe make you happy,
Well, who knows? It's all happening so fast. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but it's pretty cool to hear that you guys are already building it into your courses and exploring it. And it sounds like you guys are on the forefront of, helping people navigate through what's happening at a very rapid pace.
It is. Well, the biggest thing the only skill you actually need right now, and this is the cool part, is the skill of, I'm open to learning things. Because if you're open to that, Good news, nobody knows what the heck they're doing on these platforms yet
Right.
anyways. And we don't
Totally.
know how, search engines are going to see AI or AI and human data assessed. And you don't know a bunch of stuff. What you do know is that this is going to be a thing. It is going to eliminate some of the lower level positions. And if you really want to be into marketing, you need to understand this stuff. Otherwise, like me powered by AI compared to somebody who doesn't know how to do anything. It's like, no, I could do 100 times more work than you. It's not even fair anymore. So
Yeah.
you're either going
But
to be
you
on
do
that
know
side.
how, you have to know how, like, even the very little that I've played with it, just the way that you tell it to do things is a huge part. Like learning how, I don't even know, oh wait, I could say like, but make it funny, and then all of a sudden it's like
Mhm.
humorous, you know what I mean? Like just learning how to work the input is such a big part of what people are going to have to learn.
It is, but it's really connected to, again, that relationship you have with your potential customer. Because if you understand that relationship, it'll start guiding all your prompts anyways, because you could
Mm.
literally say, create copy for white shoes selling to, I don't know, a person with foot issues, who is miserable walking every day. And they'll, oh, here you go. And so you just describing things, just describe it as a human and it'll spit out information, but don't think that you could just be like, write ad about white shoes and have it generate something good, because how could it do that? It can't read your mind yet. We haven't done the neural chip thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you mentioned bringing it back, which I thought was great, kind of full circle. Is this actually going to make you money? And I think that really, to me, is probably the biggest takeaway of this, right? Like so many of us are still doing content just to hit quantity metrics, when at the end of the day, what we should be asking is this going to make my client more money?
Mm.
And it sounds like that's kind of the North Star of the content marketing mastery certification that you guys have going on.
It is. And it's just going back to leads and conversions, because at the end of the day, you could have the best content in the world, but if it's not making you or your client money, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And so stop thinking in terms of, oh, this is going to be an awesome viral piece of content. Instead, think of, Bob needs shoes and I'm going to convince him that these are the shoes for him. And then there you go. Now all your prompts work, all of your, every item you could justify that you're doing, because nothing's worse than going to a business or your boss, if you're a marketing professional, and being like, I don't know why that worked, or I don't know why that didn't work. And they're like, well, what the heck? You're supposed to know TikTok, or you're supposed to know email marketing. And you're like, well, what do you want?
Well, I think it becomes a sales advantage too, right? When you're selling against other content creators, right? It's kind of like, well, how does what they're doing map to making you more money for that thing that you told me you wanted to sell more of, right? And well, here's a strategy where every piece of this maps back to selling more cool sculpting for you, right? That's the objective here. So I think clarity, structure, anybody who's doing content who feels like you're kind of spinning your wheels, it sounds like a course like this, the certification would really help you come out the other side with a much more streamlined and focused approach.
Exactly. So we basically teach you how to do a 90-day campaign and really structure it and then track it. And then it's actually a circle. So it's a Venn diagram that has a arrow around it, because it just leads into the next set where you do your performance evaluation, find out, oh, this content series worked. This worked. This article actually led to this many conversions because we tracked it with the UTM code and all this other stuff. And now we're going to do more of that stuff, because every brand that I've built that was successful always anchored back to a single type of content. So for my magazine, when I had it, I had a fitness magazine that I sold to a company out here in Austin, which is why I'm here. I had one piece of content. It was called The Feed of Strength. And literally, and I spent a lot of time, I probably made like 5,000 pieces of content for this magazine. This stupid piece of content was a YouTube video that I thought, oh, that guy's doing something cool. And I put it on a blog post, and that was the top piece of content by far. Now, that didn't necessarily mean it got money. It means it generated attention that then led into the workout plans and the exercises and the equipment that I was actually trying to promote, but it got people in the door. And so that's what you're trying to find. And then you support it with your databases and information about useful crap once they find you.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because reactivation is a big part of what we talk about when you talk about like a flywheel, and it kind of feeds into the next thing, right? Like if if I do generate a campaign that generates you a bunch more cool sculpting, well, now the next time you want to sell something, the next campaign, we already have a database of people that we can start feeding the new content to get more sales for the next thing, right? One feeds into the next.
Exactly. Well, and a lot of people have a ton of content. It's just structured very poorly. And so it doesn't lead to anything because you've never actually provided a path. You just threw a bunch of stuff out there and like, hey, I'm over here. When you find that piece, look over this way. Now they're not going to do that. Like, you got to be very intentional and very specific. And if you're spending all that time making the content in the first place, you might as well take the extra 10 minutes and be like, you know what? We talk about shoes a lot in this. We should put a banner for the shoes. Oh, do that. It's worth
Genius. Well, Mark, where can people head if they're listening or watching and they like the idea of what this course has to offer? Is it just digitalmarketer.com, or should they head to a specific page?
Actually, digitalmarketer.com, you'll see the certifications link at the top. We have the content cert, brand new, and then we're actually coming out with our new social media cert, which is the other side of the coin. So basically, we say content is production. You produce content with content certification. You distribute content with social media certification, email certification, paid media certification. So if they're all lining up together. And so you'll actually see us reference different certs within other certs to say like, hey, if you really want to get in depth, go here. So yeah, just go to digitalmarketer.com. If you are interested in AI, I'm actually coming out with a new AI article every day because I was writing a book and I was like, this is taking too long and too much stuff is happening. So now I'm just publishing his articles because I'm like, whatever. But yeah, if you go to markdegrasse.com, there's actually a link, and it has AI articles, AI applications, which is just ideas they came up with for how to apply AI to different businesses. And then a gallery where you actually see the prompts that I use to generate the images within the articles.
Oh, very cool. Awesome. So that's markdegrasse.com.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
E at the end.
Awesome. Well, I'll for sure be following along, and I'm assuming you guys are going to be at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego in a couple of weeks?
No, we are not. So we have actually this whole first half of the year is going to be coming out, or actually renewing all of our certifications and then incorporating the AI aspects as much as possible. So we're a little bit busy right now, but we're going to get on the trail in the fall. And then we also have our event, the TNC, coming up as well.
Well, we will definitely see you at TNC. So looking forward to that.
It's going to be a blast.
All right, Mark. Well, thanks for dropping by. Check out digitalmarketer.com if you guys are interested in those certifications that he mentioned. And I'm definitely going to check out markdegrasse.com if we want to follow along Mark's adventures into AI.
Do it. It's like far future. So it's not like what's happening next month. It's more like what's happening the next like 2 to 5 years. And so it's more, I don't know, extreme, I want to say, but I did it for fun. That's why it's on my blog and not digitalmarketer.com. The safe stuff will be on digitalmarketer.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for dropping by, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, guys. We will see you in the next one.
Perfect. You need a coffee?